Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TOGCHAT Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me, and it's Thursday. How's everybody doing? So, even though it's Thursday, it's time for our weekly photography chat. Thanks for joining me for this live edition on Thursday night of TOGCHAT. And as you know, my mission? To help you develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. Before we get going, you know the drill. I need all of you, please, come on, tell your photography friends. If you're in a Facebook group, just, you have some photography friends, right? Let them know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. As always, Facebook, Twitter, they are the fastest way to get the word out. Go ahead and share that little button right down there or the link that I just put in the chat window. It's tog.chat/live. And we've got photographers tuning in from all over the world tonight. In fact, actually, it looks like we've got half of the UK here tonight. Ken's here from the UK. I've got James here from London. I've got Dean here from the UK. Caleb's here from Austin, Texas. Who else do we got here? We got Nicole in Australia, Luis in Portugal, Anthony from Fort Worth. We got people from all over the place. Kenneth Powell watching for the first time from Mobile, Alabama. So welcome. It is great to have all of you. But please check in. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're from. It's always cool to see where people are tuning in from and to get a sense of who we're impacting here, okay? And of course, start posting your questions. I have a couple questions lined up tonight, but not enough to get me through the whole hour. So here's your opportunity. What can I help you with? And as always, I'll do my best to get them answered, okay? So let's dig in with a. So there was lots of news this week, right? I mean, lots. But come on, I got to pay some bills, right? So I am, of course, an Olympus ambassador. So let's just go ahead and touch base really quick. Olympus announced their brand new flagship, or I shouldn't say flagship, but brand new camera in the flagship level, and that is the EM1 Mark III. So I'm going to share the link in here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I know that not all of you are Olympus users, and I love you for spending your time with me and for following me, and you know full well that I do my best, not to inundate you. But a thing that I wanted to point out, and the reason why I wanted to show you this article, I honestly, sincerely, I love this camera. This camera has the same form factor as the Olympus camera that convinced me to switch from Nikon. So I'm very excited about it because of the upgrades. But for those of you that are kind of the real gear junkies and really like to get into the weeds with all the specs and the details and that kind of stuff, visit my website. The article, you're going to scroll. I'm trying to click on the video screen and it's not doing anything. Here we go. You're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the article. And when you get all the way down to the bottom, I mean all the way down, you're going to be able to go through every single one of the camera specs for this camera. It's a more detailed breakdown than you can actually find on the Olympus website. Like, it's everything. It's all there. Okay? So for those of you that are, into those little, nitty-gritty details and are interested, there you go. And, look, it's worth noting, Nikon released their new flagship camera this week, or announced the D6, which ironically has a 20.8 megapixel sensor, and the EM1 Mark III has a 20.4 megapixel sensor. So it's not all about how many megapixels, no matter what size sensor or what brand you're using. Canon has announced some new gear and, kind of showing some life again, which is really good. So contrary to you-know-who, the industry's not dying. The camera companies aren't going out of business. Yeah, they're having to rethink the way they do business. They're having to make some changes. Companies like Canon and Nikon, they have some catching up to do, and that's hard, right? And it's not even so much catching up. It's just they've got to make a lot of changes in their technology and the way they think about technology to be able to move forward into the mirrorless era. But it's happening. We're getting there, right? So it's all good. So for those of you that are excited about your camera brands and your new cameras, congratulations. Cool stuff moving forward. I'm really excited about what Olympus is doing. And, we're still here. We're still going to be here. There's more stuff coming yet this year. There's a really cool lens that all the sports and wildlife people are dying for. And, potentially some other things, right? So let's move on. I told you I'm not going to spend a lot of time on gear. I do have a couple announcements. All right, so B&H Depth of Field Conference happened yesterday and Tuesday. I was able to give my presentation yesterday in New York City. So I had to tell you a true story because this is kind of cool. First off, let me say this was my first time attending the B&H Depth of Field Conference, and it was awesome. They kind of take over like the first, 2 or 3 floors of the hotel. They have like a little mini trade show. They have areas set up where you can actually shoot stuff. They have speakers come in. There's just a crazy amount of stuff. Not to mention there's a contest that you can enter where one person actually won a $2,500 B&H gift card and the green vest like all the B&H employees wear, which of course that's really cool. So really, really awesome event. Really, really well attended. But I have to tell you, the highlight of the event for me was not the Depth of Field Conference. So please know before I go any further, this is not in any way meant to be disrespectful to B&H or to Olympus, who sent me there. The hotel where this event was held is the New Yorker Hotel on 8th Avenue in Manhattan. It is kind of cattywampus, like a block and a half cattywampus. That's an official directional term in New York City. It's kind of cattywampus across the street from Madison Square Garden. Now, I had no idea when I was planning to go to this, and I had no idea until after I got there, because when I got there, in the lobby, there was an unusual amount of people with luggage racks that had huge dog cages on them. And there were dogs, like, everywhere, which just seemed kind of weird. And so finally I asked somebody, I was like, what's up with all the dogs? And it turned out that this week was the Westminster Dog Show. And the New Yorker Hotel is one of only 3 hotels, according to the concierge at the hotel, it's one of only 3 hotels in that area that will accept pets. And being the closest, it was the busiest. So for the day and a half that I was in New York, every time you would go downstairs and get in an elevator or go up an elevator or walk through the lobby, there were these incredible show dogs everywhere. And I'm a dog person, and it was just really cool. So I have to say, that was actually my number one highlight of the whole trip, was being there. And in a really, really weird way, I will admit, it was almost like they were TV stars, because I'm used to seeing them on TV. And here's these dogs in real life, and they were the most beautiful dogs you have ever seen. And even more surprisingly, they were also incredibly well behaved, amazingly tolerant of all the crowds, because the hotel was packed. So anyway, it was really cool. But the conference itself, outstanding. I will remind you that the conference was live streamed. So if you go to the B&H YouTube channel, and I will put the link in the show notes for you guys, if you go to the B&H YouTube channel, you can watch the 2 days of live streams. And then at some point in the near future, they will then post separate videos on their YouTube channel of each of the talks. So right now you can kind of watch the live streams. And unfortunately, one of the keynote speakers is missing from the live stream. And I'll explain why in a second. It's kind of a funny story. But they will have the separate breakdowns of each of the talks. And I was not able to find out. So keep your fingers crossed. They were recording in the room that I was in. So my talk was videotaped. My understanding was that those talks were not going to be going online, but if we're lucky, the talk will go online. It just wasn't part of the live stream. So we'll see what happens with that. And obviously, if it winds up on their channel, I will, definitely let you guys know about that. Okay. So the talk that I'm pretty sure has been edited out of the live stream. There were 2 incredible keynote speakers at the event. On day 1, it was a photographer by the name of Greg Gorman. If you do not know who he is, you should Google him and find out. And on day 2, another photographer that if you don't know who he is, you should Google him and find out. His name is Mick Rock. Mick Rock is an incredibly famous, and I would add / legendary rock and roll music photographer. He is British. He has got a British accent. Imagine Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones with a camera, right? His hair's probably a little bit shorter, and his skin's not quite as bad, but he's got the same voice, same kind of accent. The best part of it is that pretty much from the beginning, now keep in mind, these are being live streamed on YouTube. So YouTube has very strict policies with regards to content and language and things like that. I don't think it would have been humanly possible to drop any more F-bombs in the course of a talk than Mick Rock did. It was really pretty priceless. He basically, his talk was kind of really just relating stories about all of these different, famous musicians and actors and all these people that he has photographed and interacted with. And so it was really amazing to see the work, because some of his images in the music world are truly iconic. Probably the most well-known image, at least for me, is the Queen album cover from Bohemian Rhapsody, which is the 4 floating heads where Freddie Mercury's got his hands crossed and they're all looking up. Just, absolutely incredible. So it just was a lot of fun in the sense that he was quite a character. He talked way beyond his allotted time slot, and they just let him go, and it was great because the guy is truly a legend. So great event, really cool. Got to meet a lot of really neat people, both folks that follow me here, on YouTube, but also folks that I've never met before that just found out about me. So it, was truly, truly awesome. And then a reminder, next week, Thursday, the Capture the Light Tour kicks off for Olympus. Myself and fellow visionary Peter Baumgarten, we're going to be traveling, crisscrossing back and forth across the United States and Canada, doing these events. They're going to be held at various camera stores. My first 2, next Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, I'm going to be in Indianapolis, Indiana at Roberts Camera, awesome camera store in the Midwest. And then on Friday, I'm going to be up in the Northeast at Hunt's Photo and Video at their main store in Melrose, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston. So that's coming up. All of that information, in fact, I'm going to go back to my website here, and I want to click on the Speaking at Events tab, because there's something else I want to show you guys while I'm here, and then we're going to get into the Q&A, because I know that's what you want. So all of the Capturing the Light events, you can see them here. It starts out with Capturing the Light as we scroll down. But WPPI comes up in 2 weeks. It's right around the corner. Can you believe it? So I'll be in Vegas. I'm going to be in Vegas literally for about 36 hours. That's it, which really is a bummer to only be in Vegas for 36 hours. But I'll be there on Tuesday the 25th at 1:30 p.m. I'll be doing a demo in the Savage Universal booth, and I'm going to have some prizes to give away. So if you're going to WPPI, don't miss that demo. And then on the morning of the 26th, if you are registered for the conference itself, make sure you sign up for my masterclass. I'll be doing a 2-hour masterclass on fashion and beauty portraits. And this is going to be like soup to nuts. We are going to start out with, where do the ideas come from? How do we build a shot? How do we put it together? What do we request from the makeup artist, etc.? They just sent me pictures of my model today. She's very young, but she's gorgeous. I think she's going to be a lot of fun to work with. So that's coming up. But the announcement is here, something that many of you have been asking for. And I realize some of you are in other parts of the world, so I'm sorry, okay? But if we scroll on down here into the month of April, there are 2 important weekends coming up. April 11th and 12th is the first one at my studio in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We're going to be doing a 2-day portrait and studio lighting intensive. Everything portraits, nuts to bolts, from lighting options, posing, setting up portraits, the business side of it, all of it. So it's 2 7-hour days, 10 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. And this is a small group. These classes are limited to 7 people. That's it. Okay? And then the following weekend, the 18th and the 19th, will be a 2-day fashion portraiture experience. So again, it's everything that I do with the fashion portraits, nuts to bolts. My makeup artist that you see in my videos, Monet, she'll be there working with me. We are going to create shots. And this particular workshop, the fashion portrait experience, is a portfolio building workshop for the attendees. In other words, part of what you will do during the workshop is you will create your own fashion portraits with me as your mentor and assistant. No one else will shoot those. They will be yours. So again, these 2-day workshops. Now, here's the important part, gang. If you are interested in coming to those 2 workshops, don't run out and sign up right now. Make sure that you are subscribed to my email newsletter. You can find the sign-up form on most of the pages on the website, except for the homepage, but there's a link right there. Just click on that link, okay? And it'll take you to the sign-up page. And all the other pages, it's up on the upper right, like you see here. Make sure you're signed up for my email newsletter. Tomorrow, I will be sending out an email newsletter announcing these 2 workshops, and there is an early bird discount that gets you $150 off the registration price if you register before March 4th. So you can save yourself a lot of money, right? So I just launched everything on the site today. It's there, but the notice to all of my email newsletter subscribers will go out tomorrow with the discount code to get the $150 off. That discount code will be good until March 4th. And for those of you that are members of my mentoring group, tomorrow during our weekly Zoom chat get together, I also have discount codes for you folks that are part of the mentoring program. So hopefully you'll be able to tune in tomorrow night, and I will share those links with you. So a lot of cool stuff coming up, gang. I am very excited about the educational opportunities that Olympus is allowing me to do this year and you know, giving me the ability to do. And the best part is I get to meet more of you. I get to work with more of you and teach. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And now let's get to the part that everybody likes. Are we ready? It's time for the Q&A. All right, so while I am switching this screen over here really quickly, I had a couple questions come in early, and I gotta tell you, I'm gonna rush through these a little bit because I'm seeing some really good questions come in. So while you guys are loading up those questions, keep them coming, but let me get these ones that came in earlier, and then we will do everything possible to get to the ones that you are typing right now. And then also I carry some over to next week, ones that are gonna make good lessons, okay? So from Jerry Andrews, I recently did an event for a church. It was a variety of families. He posted them on his webpage, but it wasn't easy for the customer to place an order. That's a problem. Yep. He was shooting portraits, headshots, that kind of stuff. He's looking for a program to display images for customers to place orders, something that does not add to his workflow and time. So Jerry, there's actually a couple options. It really depends on what you're currently doing with regards to printing and who you're doing that with. If you look at services like SmugMug as an example, okay? SmugMug allows you to either build a whole website with proofing or just use SmugMug for the proofing, and then you would link to it. Basically what you do is you upload your proof galleries to SmugMug, and then you connect your account through SmugMug, it's all tied together, to Bay Photo in San Francisco. It's one of the best labs in the country. And you set your pricing. So when you're setting it up on the back end, you can go through and decide everything that you want to offer to these people, from prints to albums to posters to coffee mugs, whatever, okay? And they will tell you, okay, this is what it's going to cost you, Jerry, this is the price, and then you add on whatever profit you want to make and you set that price. What happens then when you send the link to your clients that you photographed and they go and they order, SmugMug takes the money, they process the whole transaction. Whatever that difference was from cost to what you charged, that gets sent to you right away. And then they send the order to Bay Photo, who then prints the items and, best part, handles the fulfillment, meaning they ship it and send it so you don't have to do a thing. So that's the first one that comes to mind for me. There are a couple others, I believe, with, and I'm not positive. So if any of you that are here know, please correct me in case, because I don't want to send them on a wild goose chase. But I do know that when it comes to proofing, both Zenfolio and Pixieset are also very popular for proofing. What I'm not sure about, Jerry, is whether or not you can connect them directly to a photo lab like Bay Photo. I would be surprised if you can't. So I would suggest that it's worth you going and taking a look, but I'm not positive. The one that I am positive about, and I've used it in the past, haven't used it in probably 10 years, but the good news is they've been around for quite a long time providing this service. But Ed's telling me yes you can, or Eric's telling me yes you can. So hopefully that's it here. But check those 3 out: SmugMug, Zenfolio, Pixie Set. They're the ones that most photographers seem to latch onto, really like what they have to offer, etc. And you don't have to move your whole website there. Again, you can use it just for the proofing, capabilities of it, as opposed to actually setting up your whole website. And if you've got a website and you're happy with it, then you're good to go, right? Okay, next question. I'm clicking on the wrong part here. There we go. From Ulysses: what is the key to getting crisp, vivid, colorful images like yours, meaning mine? I use Sony lenses and they're not sharp enough. Usually my images look muddy and not crispy. I'm sorry. Do you? My tongue hurts so much right now. I'm biting my tongue. I really want to make a Sony joke, and I'll get in all kind of trouble if I make a Sony joke. So it's not. So let's be really clear. Look, I'm just having some fun, folks. Relax, okay? So Ulysses, here's what I can tell you, right? The challenge that you're having is not because of your Sony lenses. Your Sony lenses are great. In fact, aren't a lot of the Sony lenses made by Zeiss? Great optics company, right? Obviously I'm a little prejudiced, and I would argue that the Mzuiko lenses are sharper, but when I say they're sharper, let's be really clear. Not in the sense that, like, oh my God, that means that a Sony or a Zeiss lens looks horrible. No, we're splitting hairs when we talk about that. So here's the thing. Ulysses, there's probably a couple things that you are doing wrong, right? And without seeing some of your images, now I know you're a member of my Facebook group, so I would encourage you, post an image, make sure you provide all the details, but also include the fact that you're frustrated with your color crispness and contrast, etc. So first of all, when you talk about crisp, let's start there, because there's a whole bunch of things that I can throw at you, but these are all things that you need to essentially kind of look into. Shall we say that? When you talk about crisp, oftentimes colors being crisp is dependent upon a few things. Obviously, we're going to assume that the lens is sharp, because I believe that your lenses probably are perfectly sharp. So the lack of crispness probably has a little bit to do with not having the proper exposure set, number one. Underexposing and overexposing can have an impact on how crisp your image looks from a color standpoint. Number two, setting your lighting in a way that your lighting is very low in contrast. Contrast has a big effect upon how crisp or sharp something will appear. Okay? So you can have a very sharp image that appears soft because it is done in very low contrast. And that's actually kind of a really popular thing in some of the portrait world. Sue Bryce does a style that at first pass, everything looks kind of very soft and dreamy. But if you look close, those images are tack sharp, and those images actually have a nice little subtle pop of contrast. Unfortunately, you see a lot of people try to copy what Sue Bryce does, and what they wind up with is just a lot of really muddy looking images. So there's kind of a really fine line that she walks with her images, and it's gorgeous. But again, her images are tack sharp, and they've actually got good contrast, even though they have this very soft effect to them, okay? The other thing is, Ulysses, you gotta make sure that you're actually putting enough color into your shots. Meaning, like, if you look at the elements in my picture, since you referenced my photos, if you look at the elements, I kind of never graduated kindergarten when it comes to color, right? I'm all about primary colors. This week I posted an image on Instagram, which is actually kind of very soft and muted tones, but usually what do I have? I have bright primary reds and bright primary yellows and blues and oranges and purples. Like I go for those bold colors. So part of the way you're going to get that vivid color is to make sure you're actually including that vivid color in a predominant way in your images. So, many of my images, my goal is to kind of slap you in the face with the color so it hits you, right? So that also is a piece of it. And then, of course, there's the post-processing aspect. When you're dealing with that kind of color, and if you really want it to pop off the page, and if you really want it to, have that kind of impact, you're going to add to both the vibrance and the saturation in post-production. Now, without doing a Photoshop tutorial, because I can't do that right now, understand that I don't use the saturation dial or slider a lot, if at all. In other words, if I add overall saturation on just the saturation slider, I very rarely go above 3. Not much. However, vibrance, almost every image I take, if I'm processing it in color, I automatically go up to 30. Like that's kind of Joe's secret sauce. So you can go ahead and try it. That doesn't make it right. That means I love my vibrance pushed up to 30. I can go to 30 without oversaturating my colors, without having my colors look fake. And then if I want saturation on a specific color, I will do that in the hue, saturation, and luminance panel. And you can do that in either Photoshop or Lightroom. In Lightroom, it's in the develop panel, okay? But that's where I will, kind of boost my colors. But Ulysses, I would encourage you, since you're a member of my Facebook group, and by the way, for those of you that aren't a member of my Facebook group, what the heck are you waiting for, right? So here, let me put the Facebook group link in here. This is a very different kind of Facebook group, gang. I'm not going to give you a whole sales pitch for it. I'll let you go check it out, but I promise you, this is not your normal Facebook photography group. So if you do become a member, before you post, before you comment, there's a video at the top of the group. Watch the video. I'm relentless. If you don't follow the rules, whatever you do, it gets deleted. And if you're a pain in the butt about it, you get booted. Because I don't have enough time to really police people in a Facebook group. So it's all or nothing. Either do it right or you're gone. But what happens is once a week, on average, I go into the group and I will go through the images with all the information that you're required to post with them. And I will help photographers solve problems that they're trying to work on. So Ulysses, that would be the perfect thing for you to do, is pick one of these images that you're struggling with, make sure you do a proper post with all the details, and I will review it and I will try to help you out. So when you do make the post, remind me that you're concerned about how crisp it is and how to get more vivid color. Okay? All right. Next one I've got here from Thomas K. I guess my biggest concept to really get a grip on is understanding flash photography ratios. Oof. Thomas, that's math. I don't do math. Realistically, I tend to do 1-to-1 and 2-to-1 most of the time, which often makes flat looking imagery. I've heard that of many photographers going to 4-to-1 and 8-to-1 lighting ratios, which creates more shadows and contrast, and therefore some more depth to their work. I would just like to know some basic use cases as to when you would really use one over the other, or is it simply the photographer's choice? Thomas, first of all, do yourself a big favor, and I mean this sincerely, so I'm not trying to be funny, not trying to be a jerk. Forget the damn ratio stuff. Who cares? I know the kind of stuff that you photograph, Thomas. Has anybody that you photographed ever said to you, hey, is that 2-to-1, 3-to-1? I don't know, man. I think it would look better maybe if you're going 5-to-1. Seriously. Has anybody ever said that? Hell no. Right? So right out of the box, what does this tell me? Now, again, remember how I teach and where I teach from, what my priorities are. It tells me, man, you're spending way too much time worrying about the wrong crap. Period. Here's how you want to deal with ratios. There is some value to ratios, but here's how you want to deal with it. You need to forget them for now, because also, Thomas, I know that you're fairly early in the learning curve. Forget ratios. Forget that you ever heard the phrase. Forget that you ever were taught the concept. Just go light your shots. Experiment. Fail. Embrace the failure. Solve the problems. Figure out how to do it better, just like you did with your powder shots and your water shots. Okay? Then, what's going to happen over time, you're going to start to realize, hey, I really like it when I have one strobe dialed up 3 times more powerful than the other strobe if I'm shooting those dancers. And I really like it if I have one strobe 2 times more powerful than the other strobe if I'm doing a portrait. Because I will tell you, you refer to 2-to-1 lighting as being flat. 2-to-1 lighting being flat, you're doing it wrong. 2-to-1 lighting is like the standard traditional portrait lighting, which the whole point behind the 2-to-1 lighting ratio is to add depth. Now, of course, that only works if you're setting the lights in a way that you're trying to replicate, such as like a Rembrandt style lighting. But 2-to-1 is amazing for portraits if you want that more traditional kind of classic vibe. You might notice, Thomas, that on pretty much 90% of my images, there ain't no ratios. I like smooth. Because what I'm doing is I'm creating in front of the camera and then I'm photographing it, right? So I'm not making it cool with the photography other than maybe adding some colored gels. I'm making it cool in front of the camera and then I'm taking a picture of it to make it look dramatic. That's the difference. But I would encourage you, forget ratios. Forget ratios. Learn to see it. Learn to see what you like and then go back and say, yeah, I kind of like the 2-to-1 most for portraits. I kind of like 4, but don't let somebody tell you what's right. Because then all you wind up doing is being a copy of every other boring photographer out there. Don't follow the crowd. Ever. And like I say in my talks, folks, I said this yesterday at the B&H at the Field conference. Please, 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 please don't be the photographer that uses this quote. You have to learn the rules to break the rules. That is the biggest bunch of BS that has ever been spewed out of somebody's mouth when it comes to photography. Because the pure science, talk to any cognitive psychologist. Once you know the rules, you are in the box. You are in the box and you are fighting your natural instinct to be lazy. Go watch the talk. Don't be afraid to suck. It's on my YouTube video. You're fighting your natural instinct to be lazy. And the net result? Creativity? Killed. Done. It's dead. So the best thing you do is never learn that crap. Literally, I'm not kidding to you. Because that way you don't have to fight it. Okay? That would be my advice. All right, next up here. From Karen, was wondering to what you would recommend for shooting outside. I generally use a reflector. I do have speed lights. I sometimes use off-camera flash on a budget with your recommendation. So, Karen, that's not a question that I can actually answer. And you shouldn't ask. So let me rephrase that a little bit and give this some better context. You should never ask a question like that. So let's just break this down. And again, I'm being tough, but I'm being honest. Okay? What would somebody recommend for lighting to shoot outside? Well, anybody that gives you an answer, number one, just likes to hear themselves talk. Number two, by the way, why? Let me be clear, since I'm being that forward. Why do I say that? Because you haven't given them enough information for them to actually be able to help you. All you've done is given them enough information to be able to throw an opinion your way. And opinions, they're like certain body parts. Everybody's got one. They just are, right? So in terms of what should you be doing, it really depends on what do you like. Reflectors are great if you use them properly. I have a video on my YouTube channel that talks all about stop making bad light badder, because so many people use reflectors the wrong way, and it shows you the proper way to use a reflector. Working with speedlights outside are awesome. It's more gear, it's more cumbersome, and if you do the same stuff as all the people that you see on YouTube, where you're just overpowering the sun by 2 stops and using a round, beauty dish, softbox and all that, then your pictures are boring because they look like everybody else that's doing the same thing. It's kind of like, who cares, right? It's not that you have to spend a lot of money. You have to decide, what is your style? What do you enjoy doing? That's the important piece, okay? And then from there, you're solving that problem. Well, okay, if this is the style that I like, if this is what I want to do, then what gear do I need to do that? So, for me, I don't shoot outside a ton, but when I do, sometimes it's natural light, sometimes it's with strobes. It depends on the type of shot that I'm after and what I'm trying to accomplish with it. Okay. Karen's got another question here. I'm in my 3rd year of business, actually my 3rd year shooting. If you're in your 3rd year of business and your 3rd year shooting simultaneously, I'm not going to lie, that's probably not a great thing, but I'll explain that in a second. I feel like the images that are my favorite ones are the ones that tell a story. How do I translate that into more clients? I do a mix of portraits with an emphasis on people and their dogs. I market directly by chatting one-on-one with people and networking. So, Karen, if you've been shooting for 3 years and you're trying to make money, and you've been doing that for 3 years, again, not trying to not trying to be mean or difficult, but that means that really what you're doing, which, I'll give you credit for being able to do it, but you're getting people to pay you to be able to learn. I'm not a person that feels that there has to be like a time frame, like you have to shoot this many years before you can start to make money. No, not at all. Okay. But, you have to be able to deliver consistently good results, right? So, based on your question where you're saying, well, I feel like, I like this, but I don't know how to translate that into more clients. The first thing you have to understand is the way a photographer makes money, and actually so here, there's two things. Let me switch my screen over because I see Kenneth asking for a follow-up question here. So I want to go find a couple of videos for you guys here, right? So really quick, let me find the reflector video. Let's find that. Okay, and I'll share the link with you guys. So stop making bad light. This is this one right here. So you guys want to watch that one if you've never seen it before. And then when you see the first few seconds, you can go ahead and see if you're able to do what I do in the first few seconds. I challenge you. Okay, so there's that link. All right. I talked a few moments ago about my Don't Be Afraid to Suck video. Okay, which this is the talk that I gave at the B&H conference yesterday. So if you weren't able to be there and you would like to see it, the only thing that you're going to miss when you watch this, I will tell you, there is a short copyrighted video that appears in the middle of my talk, and that had to be removed to be able to put it on YouTube. So you're going to hear me talk about this video test, and then unfortunately you don't actually see it, but all the rest of the talk is there, okay? And besides, the test wouldn't work while you're watching the video, so don't worry, but at least not on a computer, etc. So there's the Don't Be Afraid to Suck. And then let's see, what was I looking for here? Oh, okay, so that's the one. Anyway, so in this video, Don't Be Afraid to Suck, Karen, I talk about the idea that the way a photographer makes money is that you have to do what you do to the best of your ability, and then you have to find somebody dumb enough to pay you for it. That's not a joke. That's how it works. If you watch the video, you will have a much better understanding of what I mean, because I do expand on that and I do explain it. The fact that you're marketing yourself directly by chatting one-on-one with people and doing networking is excellent. It's called word of mouth, right? The fact of the matter is you can't take your pictures unless you are interacting with your subject, right? So the idea of actually talking to people, getting to know people, having conversations before you're hired is actually a great thing. From there, social media is the key, as long as while you're doing your social media, you understand that you have to be social, okay? In fact, what I mean by that is also on my channel, and you'll notice, folks, when you're searching my channel, I'm using a little magnifying glass. If you search up at the top, you're searching all of YouTube, right? So you may not find my video. But if we do the search for social media, there are a couple videos here that I would encourage you to watch, Karen, which will help you a lot with regards to kind of how you can get the word out and use social media to your benefit to be able to create a better awareness about what you are doing. So I'm gonna share the link for both of these videos here so you have them, gang. And there we go. And for you folks that are listening to this later on the podcast, all of these videos that I'm mentioning, just check the show notes. The links are in the show notes, okay? All right, so Karen, start there. And I will tell you this, Karen, because I kind of feel like I'm blowing this question off. I think it actually, you need a little bit more information. I believe that you're a member of my Facebook group, and if that's the case, do me a favor and put together a post in my Facebook group, but I need more detail. Your question's kind of generic. Give me a little bit more specifics on kind of what you've been doing, how you've gotten to that point, how you're getting your clients now, or are you actually getting any clients now, or are you just starting out? What are your marketing efforts? And even let me know what kind of obstacles are you running into? What's working for you and what's not? With that kind of information, I can actually, based on my experience, I can help you. Otherwise, with the question I have, it's kind of just very generic, and I'm really reluctant to give people generic answers because it tends to send people off in directions that are not necessarily going to help them, okay? All right, next up here, I've got a question. This is a little bit of a long one from, oh gosh, I apologize in advance if I butcher the name, Poria. My goal from doing photography was enjoying and expressing my thoughts, not making money. But we all need money in our lives, so I am mixed up about this. What behavior I should show on my social media? For making money, I should do fashion photography, wedding, or only portraits or sports. But the thing is, I don't want to limit myself to one of these, and I don't like them that much to post only these types of photographs. I just feel that when I want to make money from photography, I just feel that when I want to make money from photography, I have to photograph the way that the customer wants, and I cannot express myself anymore. If it was only up to me, I want to post nature, street photography, stage photography, and also architecture. I'm very mixed about what to do. I study electrical engineering, and my long-term goal in life is not becoming a famous photographer, a famous fashion photographer. I'm just making money from photography because I'm a student, and I have to make money somehow to survive. So, Poria, then, I'm going to give you some tough love advice here, right? If you're just trying to make some money to survive, and your long-term goal is not to be a photographer, then suck it up and stop whining. And really, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm being really honest, right? Because indeed, if you post, and you already know the problems because you've indicated it in your question to me, right? You've already indicated that you are aware that if you post, street photography and architecture and stage photography and nature and then weddings and portraits and sports, yes, I don't know if you're in the United States based on your name, but here in the US, we refer to that as a phrase called a jack of all trades. The challenge is, the follow-up is that a jack of all trades is a master of none. That's the challenge, okay? So, just want to see here really quick, guys. Sorry. Okay. I see, I'm not going to call anybody here, but I see some educating happening in the chat. One teacher in the classroom, gang. That's me, right? Not trying to be a jerk. I'm just telling you honestly. Because if I find out that I disagree with the advice that you're giving, then I'm going to dump all over you. People come here to learn from my experience. So maybe, we should listen, and I'll do my best to try and get to those questions and help out, okay? But Poria, honestly, what I would do is suck it up. Literally, that's my best advice for you. If you just need to make some money, out of all those categories, pick what you're best at. And I haven't seen your photography. I know you shared with me an Instagram link. I didn't get to go look at it. But I will tell you this. Don't choose fashion photography because you're not going to make any money at fashion photography. You're just not. Not while you're doing it part-time in school. So it's got nothing to do with your ability. It's got to do with, if you need to make money, portraits and weddings, that's where it's going to be at. Maybe sports, it depends on what your business model is and what you're doing, but portraits and weddings. And just do it to make some money. And then the rest of the time you go and you shoot for fun. If you're going to use social media for marketing, then you've got to use it for marketing, meaning it should be concise. It should be to the point. It should show people what they are looking to purchase. Just like I mentioned to Karen in my previous comments, to make money as a photographer, you have to do what you do to the best of your ability and then find the people dummy enough to pay you for it. So the challenge is if you water down your presentation with all these kinds of photography that you like, and the bottom line is it's not wrong to like all that kind of photography. It's not wrong at all. That's passion for creating and creativity. But yes, indeed, if you want to make money, you have to answer to clients. You have to find clients. And you have to understand that the more range of things that you show, that is going to have people kind of take a step back. And there's a simple fact, Poria, that you're not going to be amazing at all those things. Nobody is, right? So the fact that you're not looking to be famous, that's cool. Photography for you is about a passion. It's about enjoying the pursuit of taking pictures and being creative. Then my advice is keep it that way, right? But if it's a matter of you're determined to make some money with a camera, then yes, the areas that you probably stand the best chance of earning some money would be portraits and weddings. But then that's what you need to focus your social media efforts on, okay? So I apologize. I know it's not a solution that you were hoping I was going to give you, but that's just how simple math works when it comes to business, okay? All right, let's see here. Michaela, I hate editing. I've started thinking of getting and using presets. Any thoughts? God, you guys are like, you're all making me sound like a complete jerk tonight. Michaela, you know what my honest response is? If you're just taking pictures for fun, right? Just for fun, and you want to use presets, knock yourself out, right? That's the easiest solution I can give you there. If you want to make money, if you really want to build your skill set, then suck it up. I'm using that phrase a lot tonight, but suck it up and deal with it. Learn to edit. Because unfortunately, what you're saying here is really lazy. So understand, I'm trying to help people that want to advance their photography skill set. Okay, so please understand that is the context from where my comments are coming. That's why I started with the statement, if you just want to have fun, then yeah, use presets all you want. In fact, heck, just dump your pictures into Instagram and slap a filter on it. Those are presets, right? Knock yourself out. And then your pictures are going to look like every other idiot that uses Instagram. They just are, right? So that's not creative. That's lazy. There's a simple fact, Michaela. So again, so you understand the context of where I'm coming from. Digital files, the raw files that come out of your camera, which hopefully you're shooting raw. Otherwise, you're spending a lot of money for a camera and you're not taking advantage of its capabilities. You're just not, right? If you're shooting raw, understand that those files were designed to be developed. Period. That's why they exist, right? Understand that a JPEG is a file that has been developed by a computer. So, and it's a compressed file. So the computer software mandatorily goes through the file. And remember, the computer's not capable of knowing what's in the picture. It uses a bunch of algorithms and it says, okay, we don't need this, we don't need that, we don't need this, we don't need that. Oh, I can get rid of that, and that, and that, and I can get rid of this, and I can get rid of that. And then it compresses the file down and boom, there you have it. And from that point forward, you can't edit it. A couple weeks later, if you realize, it would look so much better with this area darker or whatever, or changing the color, it's going to be so much harder to do. So unfortunately, digital files are designed to be developed, right? And here's the point. It's possible, because I don't know, you didn't tell me, it's possible that the reason why you hate it, and by the way, it's also worth pointing out to you, Michaela, again, I'm teaching people who want to improve, okay? What you hate is not editing. What you hate is post-production. Editing pictures is not what you do when you're changing the color and when you are adjusting the contrast. And that's not editing, folks. That's processing. Editing is the process of culling. I like this one. I hate that one. I like this one. Oh, this is the one that I want right here. That's editing. You're going through all of your images and editing, deciding which ones you're going to use. That's editing. Okay? So you're talking about post-processing. Post-processing has a learning curve, just like photography has a learning curve. So I'm sorry to sound kind of so tough and dismissive. I don't mean to sound dismissive about it, but I realize it probably sounds that way. Even from a strictly amateur standpoint, Michaela, I would suggest that if your pictures matter, why would you not want to edit them, right? And somebody just made a comment here, Alvin, which is a very fair comment. He said, well, what about outsourcing the editing? So he means outsourcing the post-production. No, here's why. Outsourcing your post-production is not going to get you good pictures. Any photographer, any good photographer that's using outsourcing, I outsource some of my post-production. We've talked about that before. And when I do, I'm giving those retouchers very specific directions. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I need this done. I need that done. I need this. I need that and this. And they get a long laundry list from me. This is what you got to do the image. So the problem of it is you have to know what you can do and what you should do to the image to be able to tell your retouchers that you're outsourcing to how to do it. So that's the problem. So Alvin, there's a lot of almost kind of common sense logic to your idea, But the problem is, Michaela's still going to come up short if she doesn't actually learn how to do the post, because you need to be able to communicate. When you outsource editing, folks, it's not just like throw it over the wall and then hope it comes back looking good, right? That's not the idea of outsourcing your editing. It's just not, okay? If you set yourself up even with one of the bigger, kind of agency type editing services and that, there's a whole big survey thing that you do, and you send them images, good, bad, and then they'll do some trials, and you have back and forth conversations about them, and then you'll be assigned a retoucher in the group. So all of your work, 99% of it's going to go to that person, so that they learn your likes, your dislikes, and all that stuff. You've got to be able to communicate, which means you have to understand and know how to do what they're doing. Now, they may do it differently than you. They may have a different process, et cetera, but you've got to be able to give them that feedback. And again, from a creative standpoint, Michaela, at least to me. So again, I'm not trying to say this is how you have to think. That's why I started with, hey, if you're just doing it for fun, then don't sweat it, right? But for me, one of the coolest things about digital photography compared to film back in the day is that I am only limited by my imagination. If I can imagine it, with digital technology, I can create it. It's possible to create it. Back in the film day, there was only, so much that you could do, right? But with digital, we're literally only limited by our imagination, which is like incredible to me. So I hope that helps, Michaela. I have a feeling it's not exactly what you're looking for, but I would encourage you to learn it. Learn the basics and to be able to do a decent job of it. Okay. All right. Scrolling on down here. I'm into the feed now, guys. So if you have questions, now's your chance. Okay. From Corinne and Company, can you please discuss social media photography pricing? So Corinne, I'm hoping you're still here because I want to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking me. When you say discuss social media photography, so do you mean like the personal branding thing that everybody's into now? Like, somebody wanting pictures of themselves to be able to, post on Instagram and that to help market whatever it is they do. Maybe they're an interior designer, maybe they're a clothing stylist, maybe they're a hairstylist and they want cool pictures. Is that what you're referring to? If it is, please let me know, and then I will go ahead and I will give you a little bit more detail. Okay, so I'll come back to that question about social media photography pricing. I want to make sure that I understand what you're after. Okay, all right. Scrolling on back here through the. Corinne, you're in Pennsylvania. Cool. So whereabouts in Pennsylvania? Let's see. I got everybody checking in here. From David, I watched the EM1 Mark III video. It was cool. Thank you. Are you already using a new camera? How does it better than the Mark II for your portrait photography? So David, yes, as I mentioned in the video, I've had it for about 8 weeks now. That video that I posted a little while ago, shooting the cowboys out in the Arizona desert, that's actually why I was in the Arizona desert. Olympus gave the Visionary team, we each got our sample copy, and it's literally, I don't have the camera sitting here in front of me, but literally when you open it up, it says sample on the back of it. Okay, so it was essentially a pre-production model. Okay, so that was the first time that I used it, was out in the desert. All the pictures that you saw were done with the EM5 Mark III, because of course we were under an embargo. We weren't allowed to post any images, etc. Every company does that. As far as my portrait work goes, so here's what I love about the camera, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I said in the video, honestly. The EM1X last year was an incredible technological upgrade, and everything from the big stuff to the simple stuff. With the TruePix 8 processor came some really, really nice advancements in terms of image quality. You also had the USB-C charging, you had the Wi-Fi, you had the handheld high-res shot mode, all those things which are great portrait features. And of course, all kinds of other incredible technology that came out in the EM1X, including things like the artificial intelligence subject detection autofocus, which is part of the reason why that camera was bigger, because it required 2 processors to get the job done. So the reason why I am truly in love with the CM1 Mark III, and it is my primary camera, just like I said in the video, it's the camera that's sitting at the top of my bag, comes out of the bag first. It has the same form factor as the EM1 Mark II, which is the camera that convinced me to switch from Nikon to Olympus. But it has a lot of those features that I loved in the EM1X. It's got the handheld high-res. It has the USB-C charging. It has the Wi-Fi capabilities. The TruePix 9 processor advances the image quality even further yet. Now, to be clear, a couple people have asked me about this. It's like, well, how much better is it? We're talking subtle upgrades, right? We're not completely changing the way it looks, be fair. But it is definitely an improvement. It's an improvement in low light. It's got better algorithms for the face and eye detection and the autofocus. So, yeah, definitely my go-to camera. Plus, the autofocus toggle on the back of the camera is just awesome. I love having the toggle as opposed to having to use the arrow pad, which is pretty much what every other camera brand uses. The toggle is just sweet. So, yeah, I highly recommend it. Here's the only thing I wouldn't do. For you Olympus users, if you have more than one EM1 Mark II. And I've had a couple people reach out to me and say, yeah, I've got two of them. I think I'm going to trade one in and get one of them, the Mark IIIs. My honest response to them, remember, this is a brand ambassador, right? My honest response to them, folks, is don't do that. Because then you're going to have two similar cameras that work differently. One has a toggle, one doesn't. One, the menu button's on the right side. The other one, the menu button's on the left side. You're just going to confuse the heck out of yourself. So it's kind of one of those things. If you use two camera bodies, and if you want, basically two, don't have an EM Mark III with an EM1 Mark II backup. That's really a bad idea because it's actually going to confuse you. You want to switch both cameras if you're going to do that. Okay. All right. Let's see. Viking Reborn. When shooting at 1.4 or similar, occasionally sharpness seems to be off, but other times it's tack sharp. I'm using a D850 and sure that it's me and not the camera. Time for studio tripod. Well, maybe, but probably not, Viking. So here's the problem, right? At 1.4, you have zero depth of field. So as an example, at 1.4, if you're shooting a portrait, okay, and you tell the person, turn your head a little bit, and you focus here, these eyelashes are going to be in focus. This eye is going to be blurry. Right? That's not the camera's fault. That's your fault for shooting at 1.4 and turning the person's head. A tripod is not going to correct that, okay? So the irony of it is if you're shooting in a studio, since you asked for a studio tripod, if you're shooting in the studio, I'm going to make the assumption that you're using strobes. So if you're still here, give me some more info, okay? And I'll keep an eye out on it, right? But if you're using strobes, then the tripod's not going to make a darn piece of difference. And if you're in the studio, and if you're using strobes, what the heck are you shooting at 1.4 for? I mean, what do you do? Listen to Jason Lanier? Like, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no point, right? So give me some more information about what you're shooting, because having that studio tripod word says to me, why are we shooting at 1.4? I'm a studio shooter. I think in the last year, I've taken 2 images at 1.4, and they were done with natural light, not strobes. In the studio, but natural light. And I had no problem with sharpness because I understood I can't turn the person's face, right? So I kept the face straight so that I had an even plane, and then everything was sharp that needed to be sharp. I also understood that I had to have a shutter speed that was fast enough for me to be able to hand hold the camera. Now, one of the benefits of being an Olympus shooter is I've got 5 to 7.5 stops of image stabilization depending on which lens that I'm using. Nikon D850 doesn't have that, not even close. Because there's no IBIS, there's no in-body image stabilization. It's only the VR reduction that's in some of the lenses, okay? But unless you're shooting natural light, Viking, and you're doing it at really slow shutter speeds, the tripod's not the issue. It's understanding depth of field. That's the issue. So I'd love to know why you're shooting at f1.4, and if indeed it is in the studio. Let me know that, and I can give you a little bit more background, okay? All right. Ooh, it's almost 7 o'clock. So let's see if we can do a little bit more here. Try and get a couple more. Where are we at here? Mogens Jaeger. spec on the M1 Mark III. I've seen different information about the EVF panel, and I can't find anything in the section viewfinder monitor on your page, but is it an OLED panel? No, it's not an OLED panel. Not at all. No. Olympus, there's actually quite a few articles out there. I'm not, believe me, I don't get this far into the weeds on the technology, so I am not the guy to give you the answer. But I will tell you this. Olympus has made choices to not adopt the latest technology for their EVF and the LCD in order to maintain speed. And I fully support that, right? Like, I understand it'd be cool to have like an 8K image on that LCD to just like kind of pop out at you. But why? It's a preview. It's just a preview. Why do we need a super, super high-res image that's this small, or worse yet, even this small? Why do we need that? So, like, I get it. Other companies are doing it. So everybody's like, well, why doesn't Olympus do it? Because there's a lag. That's the problem. There's a lag. And when you have cameras like the EM1X that are designed for sports and wildlife, you don't want a lag. So they've made, and you can find, do a little research, you'll find articles on there, on the web about it, where Olympus has talked very specifically about this. And if you can't find anything, excuse me, if you message me online or join my Facebook group and message me, I'll find you the exact statements from Olympus. If you're really into the hardcore tech, I'll find you the exact statements and get you that information for next week, okay? But again, I'm sorry, I don't get that far into the tech. But I promise you, it's a conscious decision that they have made in order to maintain speed, avoid lag time. And I fully support that. Remember, I came from a Nikon. I came from a Nikon D850, which had a higher resolution LCD and viewfinder than, well, the viewfinder doesn't count, but a higher resolution LCD than what I was getting on my EM1 Mark II at the time. It took me all of about 3 uses of the camera to, adjust to the fact that there was a visual difference, and it's absolutely fine. It has no impact on my pictures, right? So anyway, let's see here. Flying Monkey read an interesting article on S-Stoppers today. Is TFP killing the industry? For example, it's more or less become the norm in Facebook groups. And there's the irony of it. Okay, Flying Monkey. Industry, Facebook groups. They are not the same thing. Facebook groups, amateurs. Sometimes foolish. They just are. Okay? Yeah, I saw that article. It's another one of those let's make people anxious articles. Because go back and read the article. All it does is pose the question and do a lot of whining. Does it solve any problems? Does it help anything? Does it benefit? Did that article benefit the industry? No, it's just a bunch of hot air, wasting time. What did anybody learn from that article? Were there any proposed solutions other than you're supposed to charge? Because guess what? People aren't going to charge. TFP is a great thing. TFP existed long before the internet. TFP existed long before digital photography. It existed long before Facebook groups. Photographers today, the ones that are out there whining about TFP killing the industry, they're lazy. They're lazy, lazy. Capital letters, lazy. They want to pick up a camera, use it for 6 months, and have put money in their pocket. They don't want to learn. They don't want to pay their dues. They want to go out and be some social media rock star just because they spent a whole bunch of money on cameras. Nah. It's anxiety-ridden stuff. That's not helping the industry. Publishing that article, writing that article, nothing in that article helps the industry. It doesn't offer a single solution. Not one. It's viable. Not one. Okay? All right, so let's see here. Dean Bostic. I have actually been having conversations with Olympus about the photography show in UK. I will not be there this year, but we're working on next year. Simply because of taxes and visas and work permits and all that kind of stuff. It's really challenging for ambassadors to, kind of go back and forth in that regards. Eric, thank you so much for the super chat. Really, really appreciate it. It's really challenging for people to go back and forth, but I have told Olympus that I am willing to do it pretty much on my dime if I can potentially get some help from Olympus UK with regards to setting up a speaking engagement or to, not that I'm going to get paid for it, but just to be able to do the show. My understanding is, Dean, and of course I've never been to the photo show, but my understanding, at least for this year, if you've been there past years, maybe it was the same, unlike the way they do them here in the US, where the camera companies have stages in their booths, my understanding is that in the UK, the camera companies will not have stages in their booth, but there is a teaching stage on the trade show floor. And so each, manufacturer, et cetera, gets a certain amount of time slots to be able to have speakers on that stage. By the time the conversations came up for this year, all of that was booked well in advance when I made my interest known. But yeah, I've made it known. I will pretty much do it for next to nothing to have the opportunity to go over there. I have a lot of followers in the UK. I also have family in the UK. So I would love to be able to get back over and do that show. So that's my goal, hopefully next year. So fingers crossed, we are working on it. It's in a conversation, okay? Andrew, for future streams, can you lower the volume a little bit? Yeah, no, probably not, but we'll see, okay? Only Andrew, it's one of those things like every video that I do, I get one person that complains about something and the way that I did. If I change that on every single one, so if I get 25 people, if I get 50 people, then I'll consider changing it. But yeah, unfortunately, you're the first person. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just being honest. Like, if I made a change for everybody's opinion that comes up, I'd be constantly changing. And if I get a lot of people say, hey, I got a problem with this, then I'll go ahead and I'll try and work with something. So really quick here, I want to finish up, but I'm starting to get some of the answers that I asked for. So let me grab these here. So Viking Reborn. This was a low-key lighting shot in a studio. The model didn't move, but I did. I don't normally shoot at f1.4, but was only firing one strobe and wanted super shallow depth of field for that shot. So Viking, I would encourage you two things. So number one, in a studio, in my opinion, right, you're still making your life difficult to shoot at 1.4. There's like no reason to do it. So here's what I would encourage you to do. I'm checking for a link here that I'm going to share with you really quick. I have a video on my channel that I did a while ago. There it is. How to fake depth of field in Photoshop. This is like a 30-second Photoshop technique. It is super, super simple. So honestly, if it's me, I'm going to be shooting, and even if you want shallow depth of field, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot at like, with your D850, shoot at like f4 or f4.5 so that I have enough depth of field to keep the face in focus. And then I'll use the technique for that video that I just put the link in the window for, and I'll get my super shallow depth of field by putting the two together and doing it that way. So that's how, at least how I would approach it, okay? If indeed you want to be able to actually shoot at 1.4, and there's nothing that says you can't, then yes, you have to be very, very careful with your focus. You have to really, really pay attention to where your focus spot is in the camera, and you can't have the face turn. You need your subject, basically, everything that you want in focus, let's do it this way. Everything that you want to be in focus needs to be at the exact same distance and, completely parallel, right, to your sensor. So even if like you're up here and you're shooting down and you focus on the eyelashes, the person's lips are going to be out of focus, right? If you're kind of coming down on this way. So everything's got to be poof, and then you'll have everything in focus. Slightest turn of the face or any of that, stuff goes out of focus. That's your challenge, right? Okay. So let's see. Guys, listen, I appreciate all of it. We can talk about photography or you can bitch about my sound effects. What do you want? Okay. So we'll see. Next time I make a change, I'll see what I can do about the sound effects. In the meantime, if there's value to the show, I appreciate your being here. I really do. But how about if we worry about photography? Okay. Thank you. So let's get one more question in. Okay. And then I am going to be out of here. And where did it go? I saw it, son of a gun. Matt, what type of modifier would be best used for a hair light? Actually, for me, I'm not a big fan of hair lights. I've talked about that before. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. It means I'm not a fan of it. Generally, for a hair light, Matt, you're going to use just like a snoot or no modifier at all. Because a hair light, really all you're trying to, so by definition, right? Traditionally, those are important, caveats. The hair light is just designed to put a little bit of a rim on the subject and to separate them from the background. So you don't actually need a modifier to do that. Now, if you're working in a really tight space and your subject is really close to the background, well, then you might want to set a barn door so none of that light is, dropping down onto the background in the back. But essentially it doesn't matter if the light spreads out really wide, unless there's other things in your picture. But if it's just like a portrait, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, for me, I would just go ahead and use, a bare Fresnel head. If you need to manage that light a little bit more, use a set of barn doors or use a snoot. But there's no rule. You can, so the point is, Matt, because already there's people, it's like, well, yeah, I would use this and I would use that. Folks, you're missing the point. He didn't ask for an opinion. What he said is, what's best? And even though you may be telling them what you think is best, none of you are telling him why. Let's be good educators, folks. You have a responsibility. If you're going to type in, oh, it should be this and it should be that, do the why. That's what I do. Why? Always remember the why, gang. Been a rough night tonight. I'm sorry. But, it's like, I got to be honest. Put effort in. Effort. All right? So, Matt, once again, you don't need any modifier unless your space forces a requirement, meaning you're too close to the background. Or if your situation is you can't put the light where you want it, you have to back it up and it's causing flare into the camera. Cheapest, easiest thing to do is a simple set of barn doors, which you don't even have to buy the barn doors. You can take a piece of white foam core and cut a flag and a little bit of gaffer's tape on the back of your speed light, and it's going to stop it from hitting the backdrop, right? So that's the whole point. For a hair light, unless you are going to use a hair light for every single picture that you take, meaning it's going to be a super, super important, always used piece of your kit, I wouldn't spend the money on a modifier just for a hair light. Now, let's take a snoot, which somebody suggested a snoot. So if you have other uses for a snoot, then cool. Spend the money on a snoot, and then when you need it for a hair light, you use it for a hair light. But understand, part of the challenge is with a snoot, because everybody's saying, well, I use a snoot. Well, they clearly have a ceiling that's high enough. So if you remember the video from my home studio where I'm at right now, there's no way that I could put a speed light or a studio strobe above my subject with a snoot. It'd be in the shot. And if I kept it out of the shot, it'd be about 6 inches from my subject's head, which means I would not be able to get a proper hair light. Because if I set the exposure for the top of the person's head, there'd be no rim on the shoulders. So a snoot is not necessarily the solution, depending on where you're working, depending on how much space you have. But if you have enough space to be able to raise a snoot above your subject, and if you have other things, because snoots can be cool for basically aiming in their backdrop and creating like a circle of light that's going to radiate out, things like that. Snoots can be good for using on a rim light from the side if you're worried about light flaring into the camera lens. So snoots have multiple uses. But what we don't know is Matt's circumstances. So I don't want you to just hear, oh, I use a snoot and think snoot's a great way to go, because you may not be able to use a snoot. That's the stuff that we have to factor in. So again, look, I appreciate it when people want to help, but remember, not everybody is shooting in the same circumstances that you are. Not everybody has the same space and capabilities, right? That's the key. So that being said, done for the night. We got to cover some good stuff tonight. There's some good questions here that I'm going to grab and keep for next week, because I want to make sure that we can get into them next week. For those of you that I was tough on, hey, I'm sorry. I'm going to be tough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm not going to BS you. If you want to improve, it's going to take hard work. If you want to help people, please put in the hard work. It's worth it. We are a community of photographers. If one of us succeeds because of the help that we give, then we are all succeeding. The ridiculous competition and BS that goes on in this industry, and it's going on, folks, long before the internet. It went on back when I was a kid and I was learning. Okay? It doesn't help. It doesn't benefit anyone. Putting in that effort benefits everybody. We all gain from it. So, that being said, gang, you know the drill. Have a great week. For those of you in my mentoring group, I'll see you tomorrow night for Zoom chat. And for the rest of you, we'll be back next Wednesday. Please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TOGCHAT. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.